Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I'm a lesbian and a feminist, and I really underestimated how much I would like the new Taylor Swift album the first time I heard it. I've made a video about Taylor Swift before. It's called The Sapphic Urge to Subvert Taylor Swift, and in it, I go over some interpretations of her 2017 album, Reputation, my favorite of hers, as a story about, closeting and a secret love affair being hidden by a public one, playing around with the uses of he versus you in the songs in a way that, between you and me, I go back and forth on whether or not I truly believe in that. But for a time, leading up to the release of Lover in 2019, it did become sort of a public-facing personality trait of mine that I was a Gaylor Swift tin hatter. I was just recently given a 5 years ago Facebook memory where I had posted, "I just know Taylor Swift is about to come out. I just know it. Oh God, my heart hurts." And at least one friend of mine was genuinely surprised to see me reshare that and say, "Okay, yeah, I kind of maybe think that again a little bit, sorry." We'll get into that, though I won't be super delving into it. This video, like my video about Reputation, is not a full-on Gaylor Swift conspiracy theory video. I don't think that that would be helpful, even if she was truly gay. But the fact that I'm a lesbian is going to play into my readings of a lot of these songs on this new album, as it has played into my readings of all of her previous work as well, right? So while I'm not getting into my deep dive, Taylor Swift tried to come out in 2019 and nobody gave a shit conspiracy here, I do want to talk about some theories that I have about Taylor's newest album, The Tortured Poets Department. Tortured Poets is fascinating to me. The first half of the album leaked on Twitter, and I had seen some snippets of lyrics that made me feel about as unenthused as the lyrics from that Spotify installation was. I was up to date enough on Taylor Swift theories to know that there were rumblings of a double album, and this time that ended up being true. In an apparent payoff to a bunch of peace signs that Taylor has been throwing up, a second part to what I had initially thought was an overly drawn-out album dropped 2 hours after the Tortured Poets Department initially released, leaving me with 31 songs to process and digest instead of the initial 16 that I had felt greatly underwhelmed by the night of. The Anthology, the second album of this double album, though there doesn't seem to be general consensus on whether this is Taylor Swift's 11th or 12th album. Personally, I think it's the 12th, and this matters because it factors into some countdown stuff we're going to be talking about later in this video, but seemingly isn't generally agreed upon yet. And even though I had initially thought that 31 songs was too many, I thought 16 was too many. I thought on first listen that I would have cut a lot of songs from the first half of the album given my druthers, and I ended up not actually really going back to the playlist I made where I was culling out songs that I thought were skips. So even with 31 now, which I had thought was entirely too many, the longer I sit with it, the less skips I find when I just let it play. And this is something actually pretty rare to me in a Taylor Swift album. Often I will enjoy a lot of songs, but even the ones that I'm less fond of, I'll skip rather than just let play, even on an album that I'll tell you is my favorite, like Reputation. If I haven't managed to condition myself into enjoying Endgame, or so it goes, I think that maybe there is just more I actually like to begin with in these songs from Tortured Poets and the Anthology. In that video about Reputation, I referred to myself as something of a Taylor Swift scholar. I'm someone who people who don't really know a lot about Taylor Swift will come to ask for more information or to clarify if lyrics that they saw in a meme are real or not. Hi, I love you. But I've never been like a true Swiftie. I've never seen her in concert. I still haven't seen the Eras Tour movie. I owned 1989 on CD, and I remember going to Target to get the version with the bonus tracks. But other than feeling too cool for her for a few months after Reputation came out, though I warmed up on the album ahead of the stadium tour video that came out on Netflix, I've pretty consistently enjoyed Taylor Swift. She's been a radio staple since before I started to truly develop my own independent music tastes, and ever since I was first introduced to the concept of reinterpreting her songs through my own gay lens, I started paying much closer attention to her lyrics. This album, Tortured Poets and the Anthology, is a feast for people who want to dig deep into her lyrics, and not in the this might be about X person instead of public relationship way, though there's a lot of meat on the bones for that too, but in terms of making connections to her previous work and tying in even musically to earlier songs. Songs use the same sounds. A lot of them, actually, I think more than one, uses the vocal run from the end of the song Me from 2019, especially after Taylor Swift asks in the title track, "Who else will troll you?" I genuinely think that she is up to something. I do not think that everything is as it seems with this album, and whether that's because of my initial theory, which is that, maybe some of her unreleased songs, lyrics she wrote and didn't know what to do with, and a book of poetry that she might sell at some point were fed into some kind of closed AI network and created like a paste to fill in parts of these songs beyond bridges and choruses that she didn't quite finish formulating. Or maybe the songs feel that way just because they are rushed, because she was intentionally playing with her formula here. But something feels so intentional about the length of this album. So common fan lore for numerology here. Taylor Swift's favorite number is 13. That number features in her social media handles. She used to write it on her hand. She always calls it her lucky number. There are 31 tracks on Tortured Poets plus the Anthology, which backwards is 13. And I also think if, as I suspect, the double album is part of a countdown, that it wouldn't have truly been regarded as a double album had they not been long albums individually. Nobody referred to the Midnights Till Dawn edition as a double album. That was just bonus tracks. But the bonus edition of Midnights is what I want to talk about. When I'm talking about a countdown, that bonus edition of Midnights actually features in pretty heavily, which was a surprise to me because I am not a huge fan of Midnights. I thought it seemed maybe a little rushed out. I did not expect it to win at the Grammys, and in retrospect, I don't think Taylor expected it to either. I think she was possibly planning to announce for when she won Pop Song for Anti-Hero, and then Miley Cyrus took it for Flowers, and she was surprised, and then that's why she was like so weird to Celine Dion. That's my theory. Anyway, Midnights had a 3 a.m. drop associated with it. It came out at midnight like a typical album, and then at 3 a.m. more content came out, which to me indicates a countdown. Something comes out at 1 a.m. following whatever Taylor Swift drops next, the album that I think is lucky number 13, or maybe something drops at 1 a.m. after the 12th album, and then the 13th album, whatever comes out at midnight, is like a big thing. I also think that because Midnights had more music videos and visuals for it than the Folklore and Evermore albums did, and in one of them it featured this like stopwatch thing that said Exile ends in 3, 2, 1. When the Midnights era ended, Swifties found an error page on Taylor's website that had a 3, 2, 1 countdown, as well as the words red herring, which in conjunction with how well-trained Taylor Swift has set her audience up to find Easter eggs since the Reputation and Lover era, I really struggle to find coincidental. Red herrings are a big theme throughout this album, though, and as I said, I'm not going track by track on Tortured Poets here, but one red herring I do want to talk about from the anthology is actually the song Thank You, Amy. This is the first song since before her album Reputation that deployed Taylor Swift's selective capitalization secret message method, something that used to feature in her lining notes all the way from her first album to 1989. The capital letters in the lyrics inside of the album would spell out secret messages, names, extra pieces of detail for people to piece together and interpret Taylor's songs with. When Reputation came out, part of the branding of it was there will be no explanation, there will only be reputation, but Taylor Swift always needs to have a way to tell us that she has something up her sleeve, so the secret messages switched from being liner notes to being Easter eggs in her music videos. The Look What You Made Me Do music video, for example, is just rife with Easter eggs all the way through to things past and present and future for her career at the time. But I'm not sure they were actually referred to as Easter eggs until the lead up to the Lover album in 2019, when the Easter eggs became a really intentional piece of her branding. Thank You, Amy, which selectively capitalizes the letters Kim, which alone would point to Kim Kardashian even without some of the other lyrics, like mentioning a bronze spray-painted statue, or using the word saintly to refer to Taylor's mother, which has been said to be a dig at Kim because Kim has a child named Saint. And of course, the line that says to Amy, "One day your kid comes home singing a song only us two is gonna know is about you," which has absolutely been run with as evidence that it's about Northwest, Kim Kardashian's daughter, who has posted TikToks with Taylor Swift songs in the past, some of them even including Kim Kardashian herself. I think that line is obviously enough intended to evoke North that it is pretty much about her, which I think is kind of funny and not necessarily a mean way to bring someone's child into your feud, just considering everything. It seems like North is a Swiftie. I would think that was cool. But I also think that the all-caps Kim is probably the biggest red herring on the album, and that at some point, maybe during the tour documentary that will come out to supplement the existing Eras Tour film, a phone call will be released where Taylor tells Kim, "Hey, I wrote a song that isn't about you, but can I use your name in all caps anyway?" Reasons I think this. Kim Kardashian has always loved Taylor Swift-related clout, and with this song in particular, the worst thing people are going to say to her in her comment section, as I have already seen, seems to be, "Thank you, Amy," which is, like, not that bad, all things considered. For Taylor, this is excellent hype for the Reputation release. For Taylor, this is excellent hype for the Reputation re-release. That was hard to say. It's one of only 2 albums she has left to record since the sale of her masters. And this album, I think a lot of what Taylor Swift has done, including her album Lover, a lot of it does come back to that sale of her masters. One of the angriest and best songs on the album, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, I think is about her former manager, Scott Borchetta, who facilitated that sale of her masters after not allowing her to purchase them for herself. I said in my video about Reputation that I have always thought Getaway Car was about her having to leave behind her old masters and existing career, and this is kind of me bisexual Taylor Swift tin-hatting, but I do truly think that some of the reasoning behind all of the rainbow imagery around Lover was that she genuinely was planning on aligning herself with and maybe coming out as part of the LGBT community at the time. She liked, and her PR person Tree Payne retweeted posts about how the Me music video was queer-coded after its release on Twitter. She was wearing rainbow everything that summer, hanging out with drag queens. That was the summer of Drunk Taylor, and the sale of the masters really changed the trajectory of the Lover era in a way that I think might have had effects not just on the marketing around it, but on the album itself. In a song on Evermore, she says, "I was dancing when the music stopped, and in the disbelief, I can't face reinvention. I haven't met the new me yet." I think even if she wasn't intending on actually coming out as being in the LGBT community, something that I think is possible, but that I keep thinking might have been the plan at some point and then changed. But I think that's, even if that wasn't whatever this reinvention was that she was trying to have, Lover suffered from not being willing to be a full-on reinvention of Taylor Swift. Folklore and Evermore are true departures for her. departures that I think are tonally echoed a lot in the back half, especially of the anthology, but I don't think that those were the reinvention she had been picturing. I think those are very specific to the time that they came out. And in the closing track of the anthology, the manuscript, she says that looking back might be the only way to move forward, which I think really ties into the idea of Tortured Poets and the anthology as something that exists completely within the context of existing Taylor Swift albums. They intentionally tie in songs all the way back through her discography. LOML, for example, has the same piano as White Horse from her album Fearless, but I think she's intentionally revisiting Lover, Folklore, and Evermore with these albums, and I think Midnights was intentionally a bridge from those three to this double album, which is also a bridge to something else. So Midnights was 3, this is 2, and I am genuinely surprised and a little unsettled trying to figure out what 1 is going to be. If that's tied to her 13th album, or a big announcement, or something else. I have seen speculation that what she's teasing is retirement, that she's going to go and get married and have babies and step out of the spotlight. I don't feel convinced that that's what she'd like to do at this point, though even as far back as the album Red in The Lucky One, a song that I think the closing album of the first half of Tortured Poets is absolutely paired with, she's making it pretty clear that one day she does want to give up the whole mega stardom thing. I just don't find it likely that she'll stop making music anytime soon, and I don't want her to either. I really liked John Green's post about Taylor Swift this week on Twitter, where he said, among other things, "You don't have to like her, but I get to." And not only is that increasingly how I feel about Taylor Swift the more this album rewards my close listening, it's also a sentiment that I want to extend in this video. You don't have to like Taylor Swift. You don't have to agree with me even that she's up to something, that this album is actually good, that she's actually a little bit brilliant, but I am glad that I get to. I like Taylor Swift. I'll probably never identify as a full-on Swiftie. I'll probably never make it through a Taylor Swift album for the first time without rolling my eyes a couple of times, but I am glad that I get to like Taylor Swift. The Tortured Poets department and the anthology are absolutely not albums that I would point a beginner Taylor Swift listener towards, but also none of them are. And I've never in my life been in a position to have to point somebody to a starter Taylor Swift album. This is a woman who is unprecedentedly successful. She does not need my defense or protection, and she doesn't suffer because I don't directly give her my money. She does all of her own marketing, and though all of her albums do reward re-listening, this new one does it in a way that I think is a little bit unprecedented for her. It's self-referential in a way that I think I probably can't even fully unpack in a video for a solid year, but maybe I'll try at some point, and please do let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. I'd also like to make a Nuance Corner video specifically about Taylor Swift's career and the lyric in Who's Afraid of Little Old Me that's been getting so clowned on Twitter this week. But I need to do a little more research about some things before I make that one. See, Drake Bell, I do good research for my videos. But I didn't need to do so much research to talk about this initial theory about Tortured Poets, and you know, I'm less and less convinced about the AI thing, even though I do think that it was maybe intentionally rushed. I was almost off of my maybe this is a closed network AI thing train, and then she retweeted what do you mean about it selling, because I thought the AI thing was all, again, like the thank you Amy thing to build hype for reputation. I thought that she wanted to manufacture everybody hating something, and even though it does mostly seem to be the fans who love this, it's not as hated as I think she thought it was going to be, but I think she was prepared for this album not to do very well. Like I said, I think the album mostly is part of a countdown, and I don't even feel sure that the end of the countdown is an album. At first, I thought that it would be a probably not very good book of poetry, that she was going to try to sell, especially when the announcement for the second half of the double album said all that's left now is the tortured poetry. especially because parts of these where the lyrics feel kind of shoved into the beat could come from something that gets released later, you know, poetry or eventual memoir or fiction. I just won't feel surprised if that's the case, especially not after the hype that movie Argylle and its novelization got just from the Taylor Swift halo effect. Taylor has spoken her entire career about wanting to be a novelist, and she teased it in the all too well 10-minute version music video that we're all supposed to call a short film, casting the Sadie Sink version of herself as an author rather than a songwriter. So she may have already had a book in the works. Apparently she's been renewing the copyright on the title of one she wrote as a teenager that's called A Girl Named Girl, about a girl whose mother wanted a son instead of a daughter. She's been renewing the copyright on that since 2015, and whether it's that book, which I think is kind of unlikely, or something else, you know, she might have felt emboldened by those rumors that she was writing a book and been like, oh, they actually will read my book. Or, you know, those rumors might have come from something that she's been already teasing because this was in the pipeline. I don't know. I've always said that I think that a lot of Taylor Swift Easter eggs are, you know, things that she sees her fans say that she's doing and then decides to do anyway, even though a lot of them are genuine Easter eggs and things that happen in this woman's brain that I can't even fathom. Honestly, I think Taylor Swift is always going to be a hyperfixation for me, and her music is going to be something that comes up on my YouTube channel a lot in future videos. If you like nuanced Taylor Swift content from someone who thinks she's kind of cute with Football Man but might have tried to come out in 2019, and you're not already subscribed to me, please consider following for future videos on the subject. And if you liked me, but you wish I was talking about anything other than Taylor Swift, I have great news for you. Please check out any of the rest of my videos other than that Reputation one. I talk about lesbian stuff and internet stuff and feminism stuff. I've already mentioned my Patreon, but you could subscribe there for bonus videos. If you'd like more of me, you can follow on the free tier for updates and cat photos, and if you're interested in a one-time financial donation to me, you could kick me a couple bucks on coffee, which would be a huge help. Thank you so much to everyone who has already supported me through the Patreon by supporting me on Ko-fi, for Paige Christie for sending me this beautiful microphone, and to everybody who has liked and shared, commented on my videos, or even just watched them all the way through to the end again. I'm gonna go listen to Tortured Poets again while I edit this, probably. Bye.